The sun was setting over the human colony of New Hope. Orange light painted the metal walls of the settlement. Tejo stood at the gate, a bag slung over his shoulder. His face showed no emotion, but his eyes held deep pain. "The council has made their choice," said Commander Dae-sung. The older man's voice was firm but tired. "You are exiled from New Hope. You may not return." Tejo nodded once. He did not argue or beg. The small device at his temple, once glowing blue to show his rank in the colony's defense force, now pulsed gray. "The mark of an exile." "You were one of our best soldiers," Dae-sung added, his official tone slipping. "But 17 people died because of your mistake. The families want justice." "I understand," Tejo said, his first words since the council's vote. Simple words that carried the weight of his acceptance. The mission had seemed simple: protect the water scouts as they checked a new spring in the Eastern Valley. But Tejo had missed the signs of the acid storm. By the time he ordered everyone back to the vehicles, the deadly rain had already begun to fall. 17 colonists melted before his eyes while he watched from the safety of his sealed suit. A survivor had called it negligence. Others used harsher words. In a colony of just 300 people, the loss was too great to forgive. "You have supplies for 3 months," Dae-sung said, handing over a small tablet. "The northern mountains are unclaimed. No one will follow you there." Tejo took the tablet without a word. 3 months of supplies. After that, he would live or die by his own skills. "Your father would be disappointed," Dae-sung said quietly. "He saved so many during the Earth evacuation." The words cut deeper than any knife. Tejo's father, Minho, had been a hero during humanity's final days on Earth. When the solar flares made their home planet uninhabitable, Minho had piloted the last rescue ships. He had died making sure others would live to reach the colony ships. And now his son was being sent to die alone on an alien world. "Goodbye, Commander," Tejo said, turning away from the only home he had known for 15 years. Since age 12, when the colony ships had reached Kepler 9, this settlement had been his entire world. He walked away without looking back. The path ahead led through fields where the colony grew their food. Workers stopped to watch him pass. Some looked angry, others sad. Most simply turned away. An exile was already considered dead. Beyond the fields lay the wilderness of Kepler 9. The planet had its own life forms, most small and simple. The survey teams had found fossils of larger creatures, but they seemed to have died out long before humans arrived. The planet's constant amber haze made the landscape look like an eternal sunset. Tejo walked until the lights of the colony disappeared behind him. Then he set up his first camp. As night fell, strange calls echoed from the alien forest. He checked his weapon, a standard pulse rifle with limited charges, which would keep him safe for now, but once the power cells died, he would need to find other ways to survive. He did not sleep that first night. Instead, he stared at the unfamiliar stars and made a silent promise. He would not simply survive his exile. He would find a way to redeem himself, even if no human ever knew of it. Morning came with a light drizzle of rain. Tejo quickly packed his shelter, knowing that on Kepler 9d, gentle rain could turn to burning acid with little warning. He checked his direction finder and continued north toward the mountains that rose like jagged teeth against the horizon. The journey would take weeks. The mountains were far, and the terrain between grew increasingly difficult. Tejo set a steady pace, conserving his energy and supplies. His military training served him well. Each night he made camp in defensible positions. Each day he noted landmarks and possible food sources. On the 5th day he encountered his first real danger. A pack of 6-legged hunters, the colonists called them hex wolves, circled his camp at dusk. Their eyeless faces turned toward him, sensing his heat. Tejo fired a warning shot from his rifle. The creatures retreated but did not go far. That night he slept in shifts of 20 minutes, waking to check his surroundings before allowing himself another brief rest. By morning, the hex wolves were gone, but he knew they had simply moved on to easier prey. As he traveled, Tejo began to notice changes in himself. His military short hair grew longer. His once clean uniform became stained and worn. The neural implant at his temple, standard for all Defense Force members, grew dim as it lost connection to the colony's network. 2 weeks into his journey, Tejo reached the foothills of the northern mountains. Here the landscape changed dramatically. Strange crystal formations jutted from the ground, catching the light and breaking it into rainbow patterns. The soil became darker, richer with volcanic minerals. He discovered that the starchy root vegetables the colonists grew also grew wild here, though smaller and tougher. It was his first sign that survival beyond 3 months might be possible. In a small valley between two hills, Tejo found a stream of clear water. He tested it carefully. Water on Kepler 9d could contain metals toxic to humans. This stream ran over crystal beds that seemed to filter the water naturally. He filled his containers and marked the location on his tablet. That night, as he made camp near the stream, Tejo heard a sound unlike any he had encountered before. A deep, resonant call that echoed between the mountains. It was not threatening, but it made the hair on his arms stand up. Something large had made that sound, larger than any creature the colonists had documented. Tejo checked his rifle and reinforced his camp's defenses. As he worked, he realized he felt more alive than he had in years. In the colony, he had been a soldier, following orders and protocols. Here he was simply a human facing the unknown. Every decision was his own, every consequence his to bear. The next morning he found massive tracks near the stream. Whatever had made the sound had come to drink in the night. The tracks were unlike anything in the colony's database, three-toed with what appeared to be wing marks dragging on either side. Curiosity overcame caution. Tejo decided to follow the tracks. They led higher into the mountains through passes where the crystal formations grew more elaborate and beautiful. The air became thinner but also cleaner, free of the spores that sometimes made breathing difficult in the lowlands. After 3 days of tracking, the trail ended at a sheer cliff face. Tejo studied the rock wall, noting unusual markings that might be claw marks. Something large had climbed this cliff. Without proper equipment, he could not follow. Instead, Tejo explored the area around the cliff. He found a narrow crevice that seemed to lead into the mountain itself. Cool air flowed from the opening, carrying a strange, sweet scent. Tejo hesitated at the entrance. His supplies were running low. The smart choice would be to establish a permanent camp near the stream and begin building a more sustainable life. Exploring unknown caves was risky, but the exile had not come this far to play it safe. With his rifle ready and a light attached to his wrist, Tejo entered the mountain. The passage was narrow at first, forcing him to turn sideways in some places. Then it widened suddenly into a tunnel large enough to walk upright. The walls were smooth as if worn by water or something else. Tejo walked for nearly an hour, the tunnel sloping gently upward. Then he saw light ahead, not daylight but a soft blue glow. He switched off his wrist light and approached cautiously. The tunnel opened into a vast cavern. Tejo stood at the entrance, his breath caught in his throat. The ceiling rose at least 30 meters above, dotted with glowing fungi that cast the entire space in gentle blue light. And there, in a depression lined with crystal shards and soft material that looked like shed scales, lay 7 large, iridescent spheres. Eggs. They could only be eggs. Each was nearly as tall as Tejo's waist, with shells that shifted colors as he watched, blue to green to purple and back again. Through the partially transparent surface, he could see dark shapes moving inside. Tejo approached slowly, his rifle lowered. He reached out a hand and gently touched the nearest egg. It was warm and he felt a slight vibration, as if something inside had responded to his touch. In that moment, Tejo knew he had found his purpose. Whatever had laid these eggs was gone, perhaps temporarily, perhaps permanently. The eggs were vulnerable, and he, an exiled warrior with nothing left to lose, would become their guardian. Tejo made the cave his new home. He moved his small camp from the stream to the cave entrance. The first night he sat watching the eggs, wondering what creatures would hatch from them. They were too large to be from any animal he had seen on Kepler 9. "What are you?" he asked aloud, his voice echoing in the cave. The eggs seemed to pulse brighter at the sound of his voice. Tejo checked his tablet. The colony database had records of fossils found during the first surveys of the planet. He searched through the images until he found one that matched what he was thinking. Keplerian apex avians, he read. The scientists had found bones of massive flying creatures. They had long necks, powerful wings, and strong back legs. The colonists called them dragons because they looked like Earth's mythical beasts. But the scientists believed they had died out thousands of years ago. Not extinct after all, Tejo said, looking at the eggs. Just hiding. He wondered where the parent was. A creature that large would need a huge territory to hunt. Perhaps it was away searching for food, or maybe it was dead. The eggs seemed to have been alone for some time. The next morning, Tejo explored the area around the cave. He found a small spring of fresh water inside the mountain, not far from the egg chamber. This would be valuable during acid rain seasons. He also discovered more of the starchy root plants growing in patches where sunlight reached. Through cracks in the mountain, he set up simple alarms at the cave entrance, strings with small bells that would ring if anything large tried to enter. Then he began the work of making a more permanent shelter. He used branches and the tough fiber-like plants that grew on the mountainside to build a small hut just inside the cave mouth. It would protect him from the weather while allowing him to guard the entrance. As days passed, Tejo fell into a routine. He would wake at dawn, check the eggs, then go hunting or gathering food. The mountain was home to many small animals that were good to eat. He made traps from vines and sticks, catching enough to feed himself with some left over. Each evening he would sit with the eggs and talk to them. He told them about Earth, about the colony, about his father's heroism and his own disgrace. Sometimes the neural implant at his temple would flicker when he was near the eggs, as if trying to connect to something. "I wonder if you can understand me," he said one night, a month after finding the nest. "I wonder if you know I'm here to protect you." That night, Tejo woke to the sound of his alarm bells ringing. He grabbed his rifle and moved silently to the cave entrance. In the moonlight, he saw 3 hex wolves trying to enter the cave. They were larger than the ones he had seen before, with scarred hides that showed they were experienced hunters. Tejo fired a warning shot. The hex wolves backed away but did not run. They were hungry, and they had sensed the eggs. He fired again, hitting the ground in front of the lead creature. This time they retreated, but Tejo knew they would return. The next day he worked to strengthen the cave's defenses. He gathered sharp crystal shards from around the mountain and placed them at the entrance, creating a barrier that would hurt the feet of any creature trying to enter. He also dug a narrow trench that he could fill with burning oil in an emergency. As he worked, Tejo noticed changes in the eggs. Their colors were becoming brighter and the movements inside more frequent. They were growing, feeding on some internal energy source. He wondered how long dragon eggs took to hatch. 2 months after finding the nest, Tejo discovered the first sign of the parent dragon. On a high ridge above the cave, he found a massive footprint pressed deep into stone. It was fresh, made within the past few days. The parent was alive and had returned to the area. Tejo felt both hope and fear. If the parent returned to the nest, would it see him as a threat? Or would it somehow know he had been protecting its young? He decided to leave signs of his peaceful intentions. Near the footprint, he placed an offering of food, the largest animal he had managed to hunt, a 6-legged herbivore the size of a small deer. He stepped back and bowed deeply, hoping the gesture would be understood if the dragon was watching. That night, the offering was gone. In its place was a large, partially eaten fish from the distant ocean, a food Tejo had not tasted since leaving the colony. A gift in return. "Thank you," he said to the empty air, certain now that he was being watched. The attacks on the nest increased as the eggs grew brighter. It wasn't just hex wolves now. Other predators came, drawn by the energy the eggs were giving off. Tejo fought them all off using his rifle when necessary, but saving the limited charges when he could. During one particularly fierce attack, a pack of cave crawlers, many-legged creatures with poisonous bites, broke through his outer defenses. Tejo fought them hand-to-hand when his rifle jammed. He killed most of them but received deep cuts on his arms and a bite on his leg. As he limped back to the egg chamber, bleeding and exhausted, he noticed something strange. The eggs were pulsing in unison, their glow intensifying. When he collapsed near them, the nearest egg rolled slightly toward him. He felt warmth spreading from it and the pain of his wounds lessened. "You're helping me," he whispered in amazement. The neural implant at his temple flickered to life, glowing faintly for the first time in months. He felt a gentle pressure in his mind, like a question without words. Tejo placed his hand on the egg. Images flooded his mind. Stars seen from above, the curve of the planet, the sensation of wind beneath wings. The dragons were not just animals. They were intelligent, perhaps more intelligent than humans. "I'll stay with you until you hatch," he promised. "I'll keep you safe." The winter season came to the mountains. Snow fell and the temperature dropped. Tejo's supplies from the colony were long gone. He survived on what he could hunt and gather, but food became scarce. He grew thinner, his once strong frame becoming lean and wiry. Still, he made sure the eggs stayed warm. He built fires near the nest and covered the eggs with insulating materials he gathered from the forest. When food was very scarce, he would take only a small portion for himself, saving the rest for the eggs. He discovered they could absorb nutrients if he placed food directly against their shells. One morning, after a particularly harsh storm, Teho found massive tracks in the snow outside the cave. The parent dragon had returned again, this time coming much closer to the cave entrance. In the tracks was another gift, a cluster of glowing crystals that gave off heat. Teho placed them among the eggs, and the temperature in the nest chamber rose to a comfortable level. "Your parent knows I'm helping," he told the eggs. "We have an understanding." As the winter deepened, Teho's health began to fail. The bite from the cave crawler had become infected, and he had no medicine to treat it. He developed a fever that came and went. On the worst days, he could barely leave his shelter to find food. During one fever dream, Teho thought he saw a massive shape at the cave entrance, a long neck, folded wings, eyes that glowed like stars. But when he woke, there was only a fresh kill laid near his shelter, still warm. The eggs continued to grow and change. Their shells became more transparent, revealing the creatures inside more clearly. They had long necks and folded wings, just like the fossils. True dragons of Kepler 90. Teho's neural implant now activated whenever he was near the eggs. He could sense their awareness growing, their minds developing. They knew him. They recognized him as their protector. One evening, as a storm raged outside, Teho sat with the eggs and told them about honor. "My father died saving others," he said, his voice weak from illness. "He gave his life so that strangers could live. The colony called him a hero." He coughed, a deep rattling sound. "I failed my mission. People died because of me. The colony called me a disgrace." He placed his hand on the nearest egg, feeling its warmth. "But out here, those words don't matter. Hero, disgrace, they're just sounds. What matters is what we do. I chose to protect you. That's all." The egg pulsed beneath his hand, and Teho felt a response through his implant, not words, but feelings, gratitude, recognition, acceptance. That night, as Teho's fever rose again, the eggs moved closer to him, surrounding him with their warmth. Through his implant, he felt their concern. They were trying to help him as he had helped them. "It's all right," he told them, though he knew his infection was worsening. "I'll stay until you hatch. I promise." Outside, the parent dragon circled the mountain, its massive wings creating gusts that bent the trees. It could sense that both its eggs and their unusual guardian were in danger, but it could not enter the narrow cave without risking damage to the nest. Instead, it landed on the peak above and let out a call that echoed across the mountains, a sound of both warning and mourning. The time of hatching was near, but the human protector was fading. In the egg chamber, Teho heard the call and smiled weakly. "Your parent is coming," he told the eggs. "You'll be safe now." The largest egg rocked back and forth, a crack appearing across its iridescent surface. The first egg cracked open as the winter storm reached its peak. Teho watched through fever-blurred eyes as a small head pushed through the shell. The hatchling was about the size of a large dog, with scales that shifted colors like the northern lights of Earth. Its eyes opened, vertical pupils in a sea of gold, and fixed directly on Teho. "Hello, little one," Teho whispered. His voice was weak, but he smiled. "Welcome to the world." The hatchling made a chirping sound and broke free of its shell completely. It had 4 legs, 2 wings folded against its sides, and a long tail. It shook itself, sending pieces of eggshell flying, then took unsteady steps toward Teho. When it reached him, the hatchling pressed its head against his hand. Teho's neural implant flared brightly, and a flood of images and feelings poured into his mind. Curiosity, recognition, trust. "You know me," Teho said in wonder. "You knew me before you hatched." Over the next 3 days, all 7 eggs hatched. Each new dragon recognized Teho immediately. They gathered around him, their combined body heat helping to fight off the mountain cold. The smallest one, with scales that shimmered mostly blue, would not leave his side. It curled up against his chest when he slept, making a purring sound that eased his pain. Teho named them, though he knew they had their own names and their own way of thinking. The largest he called Haben, after his sister who had died during the journey from Earth. The blue one he named Min, after his father. "Min," he said, stroking the small dragon's head. You remind me of him, stubborn, protective. Through his neural implant, Teho felt Min's response, a mixture of pride and concern. All the hatchlings knew their guardian was sick. They tried to help in their own ways. Some brought him water in their cupped wings. Others hunted small animals and dropped them at his side. But Teho was growing weaker. The infection had spread from his leg throughout his body. Without proper medicine, he knew he would not survive much longer. His only concern now was for the hatchlings. You need to learn to hunt, he told them one morning, forcing himself to sit up. You need to learn to fly. Using his rifle as a crutch, Teho led the hatchlings to the cave entrance. The storm had passed, leaving the mountain world covered in snow and ice. The hatchlings crowded around him, nervous about the open space. It's all right, he assured them. This is your world. You were born to rule it. Habin was the first to step into the snow. She spread her wings experimentally, catching the sunlight on her scales. The others followed, their natural instincts beginning to take over. Soon they were playing in the snow, sliding down small slopes and testing their wings in short glides. Teho watched from the cave entrance, his heart full despite his pain. Through his implant he could feel their joy, their discovery of the world. It was like experiencing childhood again. That afternoon, as the hatchlings practiced gliding from rock to rock, a shadow passed over the mountainside. The parent dragon had returned. It circled once, twice, then landed on a wide ledge above the cave. It was massive, at least 20 meters from nose to tail, with a wingspan twice that length. Its scales were darker than the hatchlings, showing age and experience. The young dragons called out in excitement. Through his implant, Teho felt their recognition, not of a parent they had never seen, but of a kind they somehow remembered. The adult dragon looked directly at Teho. Its eyes were ancient, intelligent. It made no move to approach, but Teho felt a pressure in his mind, stronger than what he felt from the hatchlings. The parent was communicating. Images flowed into Teho's mind. The eggs left alone when the parent was injured in a fight with another predator. The parents returned to find a human guarding them, the parent watching from afar as Teho defended the nest again and again. You're welcome, Teho said, bowing his head. They're amazing. The parent dragon spread its wings and called to the hatchlings. They responded eagerly, trying to flap their own smaller wings. It was their first flying lesson. For the next week, the parent returned each day. It never came close to Teho, but it no longer seemed wary of him. The hatchlings divided their time between learning from their parent and returning to Teho in the cave. Teho's condition worsened. He could no longer stand, and his fever rarely broke. The hatchlings brought him food, but he could barely eat. Min stayed with him constantly, as if knowing his time was short. One night, as Teho drifted in and out of consciousness, he felt a new presence in the cave. The parent dragon had entered, folding its massive wings to fit through the passage. It approached Teho cautiously, then lowered its head until its eye was level with his. Through his implant, Teho felt the dragon's mind touch his own. It was not like the simple feelings he got from the hatchlings. This was complex, structured thought, a true intelligence trying to communicate. The dragon showed him images of the past, its kind ruling the skies of Kepler 90, a disaster that nearly wiped them out, the few survivors hiding in the mountains, rarely breeding, becoming myth even before humans arrived. Then it showed him something unexpected, dragons and humans living together on the planet. Not now, but in a possible future. The dragons helping humans survive the harsh world, humans helping protect dragon eggs and hatchlings. A partnership, Teho whispered. It could work. The dragon's response was clear, yes, but not yet. Humans were not ready. The colony still saw Kepler 9D as something to conquer, not something to share. Then why show me? Teho asked. The answer came in a flood of images. Teho protecting the eggs, the hatchlings recognizing him as family, the beginning of understanding between species. He was the first bridge, but I'm dying, Teho said. I won't be able to tell anyone. The dragon's eye blinked slowly. Through the implant, Teho understood. His story would be told, but not by him. The dragons would remember, and someday when the time was right, they would share that memory with other humans. The parent dragon moved back, allowing the hatchlings to crowd around Teho again. They sensed what was happening and pressed close, sharing their warmth and their grief. It's all right, Teho told them, his voice barely audible. You'll be fine now. Your parent will teach you everything you need to know. Min chirped sadly, nudging Taeho's hand. Through the implant, Taeho felt the little dragon's distress. I know, he said, stroking Min's head. I'll miss you too. That night, as the moons of Kepler 9 rose over the mountains, Taeho's breathing became shallow. The hatchlings surrounded him completely, their bodies providing warmth, their minds linked with his through the implant. In his final moments, Taeho saw not the cave but the sky, felt not pain but the sensation of wind beneath wings. The dragons were sharing their most precious gift, the experience of flight. Through their eyes he soared above the mountains, saw the curve of the planet against the stars, felt the freedom of the endless sky. Thank you, he whispered, though he no longer had the strength to speak aloud. The words were carried through the implant, felt by all 7 hatchlings and their parent. As Taeho's life slipped away, the parent dragon raised its head and let out a call that echoed across the mountains. Not a cry of mourning, but a song of honor. The hatchlings joined in, their higher voices weaving with their parents' deep tones. The song carried far in the clear night air. At the distant colony, people stepped outside their homes, looking toward the northern mountains with wonder and a touch of fear. They had never heard such a sound before. In the cave, the dragons continued their vigil around Taeho's body. Through some instinct older than thought, they knew what to do. The parent dragon breathed a gentle flame that crystallized the air. The hatchlings added their own smaller flames. Slowly, the crystal grew around Taeho, preserving him. His neural implant, still connected to the dragon's minds, glowed with a light that would never fade. In death, Taeho had become part of something greater than himself, part of the dragon's shared memory, their collective consciousness. The exiled warrior had found his redemption, and the dragons had found a new beginning. 5 years passed since Taeho's death. The dragons grew quickly. What had once been small hatchlings were now powerful creatures with wingspans of 15 meters. They ruled the northern mountains, hunting in the valleys and soaring above the peaks. Min, the blue dragon who had been closest to Taeho, grew into a fierce protector of the territory. Though smaller than his siblings, he was the quickest in flight and the most curious about the world beyond the mountains. The parent dragon had taught them everything they needed to know: how to hunt, how to use their fire to shape crystal, how to ride the high winds. But there was one thing the young dragons had learned from Taeho alone: how to understand humans. Through the neural connection they had shared with him in his final days, the dragons carried Taeho's memories. They knew the colony, its people, its ways. They knew the language of humans, though they could not speak it. Most importantly, they knew that not all humans were the same. The cave where Taeho had died became a sacred place for the dragons. They had preserved his body in crystal, creating a shrine that glowed with soft blue light. The neural implant at his temple remained active, connected to the dragon's shared consciousness. Through it, a part of Taeho lived on. One spring day, Min was flying near the edge of dragon territory when he spotted something unusual. A group of humans was moving through the valley below. They wore the uniforms of the colony and carried equipment on their backs. It was the first time humans had ventured this far north since Taeho's exile. Min circled high above, watching. Through Taeho's memories, he recognized what they were doing. They were a survey team looking for resources. The colony was expanding. Min returned to the cave and shared what he had seen with his siblings and parent. The adult dragon was concerned. Humans had never been a threat before, but they were unpredictable. If they came to the mountains in large numbers, there could be conflict. Through their connection to Taeho's memories, the dragons debated what to do. Should they hide deeper in the mountains? Should they drive the humans away? Or should they try something else, something Taeho might have wanted? We should watch them first, Haben suggested in the dragon's way of sharing thoughts. Learn their purpose, the others agreed. For the next week, the dragons took turns observing the human team. There were 5 of them, 3 men and 2 women. They moved slowly, taking samples of soil and rock, making maps, setting up small devices that Taeho's memories identified as sensors. On the 8th day, the humans made camp at the base of the mountain where the dragons lived. They were getting closer to the cave. They will find us soon, Min said to the others. We must decide. The parent dragon had been silent during the discussions. Now it shared its thoughts. Show them Taeho. Let them see what he became to us. It was a bold plan. No dragon had deliberately revealed itself to humans since before the great disaster that had nearly wiped them out. But Taeho's memories showed that humans could change, could learn, could understand. The next morning, as the survey team began to climb the mountain path, Min flew down and landed on a rock ahead of them. The humans froze in shock. Some reached for weapons but did not fire. Min stayed perfectly still, allowing them to see him clearly. He was beautiful in the morning light, his blue scales catching the sun. After a moment, he spread his wings to their full extent, then folded them again. A greeting. "It's real," whispered one of the women, her voice carrying in the clear air. "The dragons are real." Min recognized her through Taeho's memories. Her name was Jiwoo. She had been a young scientist when Taeho was exiled. She had spoken against the harsh punishment, arguing for mercy. Min lowered his head, then turned and flew a short distance up the path. He landed again and looked back at the humans. The message was clear. "Follow me." "It wants us to go with it," Jiwoo said. "That's insane," one of the men replied. "It's a predator." "It's probably leading us to its hunting grounds." "No," Jiwoo said firmly. "Look at its behavior. It's intelligent. It's communicating." After some argument, the team decided to follow Min, but they kept their weapons ready. Min led them up the mountain, flying short distances ahead, then waiting for them to catch up. As they climbed higher, the other dragons appeared, circling overhead but keeping their distance. Finally, Min led the humans to the cave entrance. He landed beside it and waited. The humans approached cautiously, their faces showing a mixture of fear and wonder. "There's a structure here," one of the men said, pointing to the remains of Taeho's shelter. "Someone lived here." Min entered the cave, looking back to make sure the humans followed. They hesitated at the entrance, then stepped inside, turning on their lights. Min led them through the passages to the inner chamber where Taeho's crystal shrine glowed. The humans gasped when they saw it. In the center of the chamber, surrounded by smaller crystals, was Taeho's body. He looked peaceful, as if sleeping. The crystal had preserved him perfectly. The neural implant at his temple glowed with a soft blue light that pulsed in rhythm with the larger crystals around him. "It's Taeho," Jiwoo said, stepping forward. "The exile." She approached the crystal carefully. Min watched her, making no move to stop her. When she reached out to touch the crystal, her own neural implant, standard for all colony scientists, activated unexpectedly. Jiwoo gasped and stepped back, her hand going to her temple. I felt, "What?" asked one of her teammates. "Memories. Not mine, his," she pointed to Taeho. "And theirs." She looked at Min with new understanding. "They're connected somehow. The implant links them." Min moved closer to Jiwoo. Slowly, carefully, he lowered his head until it was level with hers. Jiwoo stood very still as the dragon's golden eyes looked into her own. "Try to touch your implant to the crystal again," one of the other scientists suggested. "See if you can get clearer images." Jiwoo nodded and approached the shrine once more. This time, she deliberately pressed her temple against the crystal surface. Her implant glowed brightly, matching the rhythm of Taeho's. For several minutes, Jiwoo stood frozen, her eyes wide. The other humans watched nervously. But Min and the other dragons, who had now entered the chamber, seemed calm. When Jiwoo finally stepped back, there were tears on her face. "He protected them," she said. "He found the eggs abandoned and guarded them until they hatched. He died of an infection from wounds he got fighting off predators." She looked at Min with new eyes. "And they preserved him. They connected his implant to their minds. He's part of them now." The other humans looked at the dragons with a mixture of awe and disbelief. "That's not possible," one argued. "Neural implants can't work that way. They're not just animals," Jiwoo said firmly. "They're intelligent. Maybe more intelligent than us in some ways. They found a way to keep his consciousness alive within their shared memory." Min made a soft chirping sound and moved to stand beside Taeho's shrine. Through Jiwoo's implant, he shared more memories. Taeho talking to the eggs, feeding the hatchlings, teaching them about humans. And most importantly, Taeho's vision of dragons and humans living together on Kepler 9D. "They want to show us something," Jiwoo told the others. "A possibility. A future where we work together." "Work together? With dragons?" one of the men asked skeptically. "They can fly above the acid storms and warn us when they're coming," Jiwoo explained, the ideas flowing from Min's mind to hers. "They can help us find resources in the mountains. They can carry messages faster than any vehicle." "And what do they get in return?" another team member asked. protection for their eggs and hatchlings, help during harsh winters, knowledge. Jiwoo smiled slightly. Taeho showed them that humans can be trusted, at least some humans. The survey team spent the rest of the day in the cave learning what they could. Jiwoo acted as a bridge, her implant allowing limited communication with the dragons. The other scientists took readings, made notes, and tried to understand the connection between Taeho's implant and the dragons' minds. As evening approached, the parent dragon returned to the cave. It was twice the size of the young dragons, its scales dark and weathered. The humans backed away in fear, but Jiwoo stood her ground. The parent dragon looked at her for a long moment, then lowered its massive head. Jiwoo hesitantly reached out and placed her hand on its snout. Her implant glowed brightly and she gasped at the flood of images and feelings. "It's showing me their history," she told the others, her voice filled with wonder. "They've been on this planet for thousands of years. They nearly died out once before. They've been hiding, waiting." "Waiting for what?" someone asked. "For this moment," Jiwoo said. "For understanding." That night, as the survey team made camp outside the cave, they discussed what to tell the colony. Some argued for keeping the dragons a secret, fearing how others might react. Others wanted to report everything, believing the colony should know about such important neighbors. "Taeho died protecting them," Jiwoo said firmly. "We owe it to him to make sure his sacrifice wasn't wasted. The colony needs to know, but they also need to understand. These aren't just animals to be studied or used. They're a people, with their own culture and knowledge." As they talked, Min sat nearby watching. Through his connection to Taeho's memories, he understood much of what they said. He knew that the future was uncertain. Some humans would fear the dragons. Others would want to use them. But some, like Jiwoo, would see the possibility of partnership. Min looked up at the stars, feeling the presence of his siblings and parent in his mind. And beneath those stronger connections, he felt the faint but steady pulse of Taeho's consciousness, preserved in crystal and memory. The exiled warrior's story was not over. It was just beginning to be told. The return of the survey team to New Hope Colony caused a sensation. Their reports of living dragons in the northern mountains, creatures thought to be long extinct, were met with disbelief, excitement, and fear. "They must be destroyed," argued Council Member Sungmin at the emergency meeting. "These creatures could threaten our entire colony. They've lived on this planet far longer than we have," Jiwoo countered. "And they've made no aggressive moves toward us in the 15 years we've been here." The debate raged for days. Some colonists wanted to send soldiers to the mountains. Others wanted to study the dragons from a safe distance. A few, like Jiwoo, pushed for direct communication and cooperation. Commander Dae-sung, now older and grayer, listened to all sides before speaking. 5 years ago, we exiled a man for a mistake that cost lives. Now we learn that this man, Taeho, spent his final days protecting these creatures. Perhaps there is a lesson for us here. His words carried weight. Dae-sung had been respected before, but the hard years of leading the colony through food shortages and acid storms had made him a true leader. When he suggested sending a second team to the mountains, this time including himself, the council agreed. 1 week later, a group of 10 colonists made the journey north. Jiwoo led the way with Commander Dae-sung, 2 scientists, 3 security officers, a doctor, and 2 engineers following. They carried gifts, medical supplies, tools, and data tablets loaded with information about Earth and human history. As they approached dragon territory, Min appeared in the sky above them. He circled once, then flew ahead to the cave. By the time the humans arrived, all 7 young dragons and their parent were waiting. Dae-sung stepped forward, removing his neural implant cover to show his willingness to communicate. Jiwoo did the same, and the 2 of them approached the parent dragon together. "We come in peace," Dae-sung said formally. "We wish to learn from you and share what we know." The parent dragon lowered its massive head. When Dae-sung placed his hand on its snout, his implant activated. His eyes widened as images flooded his mind, and among them memories of Taeho. "He was one of our best," Dae-sung said quietly. "We were wrong to exile him." The dragon's response came as a feeling more than words: agreement, understanding, forgiveness. Over the next 3 days, the humans and dragons established the beginnings of communication. The scientists discovered that the neural implants designed to connect humans to the colony's computer network could also connect to the dragon's shared consciousness. It wasn't perfect. Complex ideas were difficult to translate, but it was enough to build trust. The doctor examined the crystal formation that preserved Taeho's body. She confirmed what Jiwoo had reported. The neural implant was still active, still connected to the dragon's minds. It's as if a copy of his consciousness was transferred to their shared memory, she explained. Not truly alive, but not truly gone either. The engineers were fascinated by the dragon's ability to shape crystal with their breath. This skill could be valuable for the colony, which needed better materials for building structures that could withstand acid storms. On the fourth day, Min approached Sung with a proposal, shared through the neural link. The young dragon showed images of dragons flying above the colony, watching for approaching storms, helping to find resources, even carrying humans to distant locations. A partnership, Sung said, understanding. But what do you want in return? Min's answer came as a series of images. Humans helping to protect dragon eggs and hatchlings, sharing knowledge about the stars and other worlds, working together to explore the planet. And one more thing, recognition of Taeho's sacrifice. The dragons wanted his name cleared, his exile ended even after death. Sung agreed without hesitation. He died with more honor than many who live in comfort. We will remember him properly. When the team returned to the colony, they brought with them a small piece of crystal from Taeho's shrine. It contained a fragment of the neural connection, allowing limited communication with the dragons even at a distance. They also brought a proposal for a formal alliance. The debate in the colony was intense. Many feared change. Others saw opportunity. In the end, the need for practical benefits won out. The colony had struggled with predicting acid storms and finding safe water sources. If the dragons could help with these problems, an alliance was worth the risk. 3 months after the survey team's first discovery, a formal agreement was signed. The humans would respect dragon territory and help protect nests when needed. The dragons would warn of coming storms and help find resources. Both would share knowledge, and Taeho would be honored. His record was cleared, his name added to the colony's memorial wall. The crystal fragment from his shrine was placed in a special chamber in the colony's central building, creating a permanent link to the dragons. As the seasons changed, the partnership grew stronger. Min and 2 of his siblings began regular flights over the colony, using their keen senses to detect the chemical changes that preceded acid storms. Their warnings saved many lives. Jiwoo led a team of scientists who worked to improve the neural interface, making communication clearer. They learned that dragon memory was different from human memory, more collective, more permanent. Stories passed down through generations remained as vivid as the day they happened, and the most vivid story in dragon memory was that of Taeho. Through the neural link, colonists could experience fragments of his final days, his protection of the eggs, his care for the hatchlings, his acceptance of his fate. He became a symbol of what humans and dragons could be together. 1 year after the alliance began, a new clutch of dragon eggs was laid in the mountain cave. The parent dragon, through the neural link, invited human observers to witness the hatching. It was a gesture of ultimate trust. Daesung, Jiwoo, and 3 other colonists made the journey. They arrived as the first egg was beginning to crack. For 3 days they watched in wonder as 7 new dragons entered the world. The hatchlings showed no fear of humans. Through the shared memory of their kind, they already knew Taeho's story. They already understood that some humans could be trusted. The smallest hatchling, with scales that shimmered gold and blue, approached Daesung directly. When the commander knelt and offered his hand, the tiny dragon pressed its head against his palm. Through his implant, Daesung felt a familiar presence. Taeho, he whispered in shock. It wasn't exactly Taeho, not his consciousness transferred to a new body. But it was something of his essence, preserved in dragon memory and now born anew. The hatchling carried an echo of the exiled warrior, a connection to his story. Daesung named the hatchling Tae, with the parent dragon's approval. It would grow up knowing both worlds, dragon and human, and would become a bridge between the species. As the years passed, the alliance between humans and dragons transformed life on Kepler-9. The colony expanded, but always with respect for dragon territory. New technologies emerged from the sharing of knowledge. The neural interface improved until complex ideas could be exchanged almost as easily as simple ones. And always, at the heart of this partnership, was the story of Tai-Ho. Each new generation of colonists learned how an exiled warrior had found redemption in protecting a nest of dragon eggs. Each new clutch of dragons hatched with the memory of human warmth and sacrifice. 10 years after the alliance began, the colony held a special ceremony. A new building had been constructed, a meeting place for humans and dragons, with a roof that could open to the sky and spaces large enough for adult dragons to enter comfortably. At its center stood a statue of Tai-Ho, carved from the same crystal that preserved his body in the mountain shrine. His hand was extended, palm up, as if offering friendship. At his feet, a dragon hatchling looked up with trust in its eyes. Commander Daesung, now retired but still respected, spoke at the dedication. We came to this planet as refugees, thinking only of our own survival. We saw it as a place to conquer, to bend to our will. Tai-Ho showed us another way. He showed us that true strength lies not in domination but in protection, not in isolation but in connection. As he spoke, dragons circled overhead, the original 7 now fully grown and newer generations learning to fly. Among them was Tay, now large enough to carry a human passenger. The gold-blue dragon often chose to carry Jiwoo, who had become the colony's chief ambassador to dragonkind. Tai-Ho died alone, believing he had failed. Daesung continued, but dragons never forget warmth, and they made him a legend. Through them, his story will live as long as our species share this world. That night, as the moons rose over Kepler 9, humans and dragons gathered on the mountainside near the original cave. A new clutch of eggs was due to hatch soon, and both species would witness the event together. Min, now a mature dragon with battle scars across his blue scales, landed near the cave entrance. Through the neural link, he shared his thoughts with the assembled humans. Before Tai-Ho, we hid from humans, fearing what you might do to us. We were few and our future was uncertain. Now we grow stronger together. This is what he would have wanted. In the crystal shrine deep within the cave, Tai-Ho's preserved body continued its silent watch. The neural implant at his temple glowed with the same rhythm as the implants of the humans and the heartbeats of the dragons outside. All connected, all part of the same story. The exiled warrior had found more than redemption. He had found immortality in memory, in legend, and in the future he had helped create. A future where humans and dragons soared together beneath the alien stars of their shared home.